Just a few days ago I posted about the Dandy's World and Quelver situation, and I've already got updates. And buckle up, because the things I've found out are genuinely slowly making me reconsider who to support in this situation. Recently, someone made a post on Reddit showing the entire timeline of the events that went down during these last almost 3 months with Quelver and Blushcrunch as a whole. The timeline was filled with screenshots to prove that the events stated did happen, and as I was reading through, there were things that weren't adding up and actions that looked hypocritical. First, we see the screenshots of Quell cutting ties with Joji, saying that she's been feeling villainized in the friendship, and saying that for both Joji's sake and her sake she's gone a step away. On top of this, we see that she sent 6 months worth of money in one payment. We unfortunately do not have a receipt for this though, neither from Joji or the screenshots themselves. And right after, we have screenshots where we see that less than a week later, Void also decides to cut ties. They had previously wanted to remain neutral after quitting, but after Quell's dispute with Joji, they decided that it was no longer possible. Quell didn't argue against this. However, just a day later, Void contacts Quell again, recognizing that something must have been going on, asking her to not do anything drastic and saying that they know that she normally wouldn't act like this. So far everything has been a bunch of valid human reactions. However, from here, it only starts going downhill. On May 11th, just a month after Quell cut ties with both Joji and Void, Rox decides to contact Void again to ask about Quell and gets told that she's a bad friend. At first this might look like nothing, but given Rox's reputation, I don't understand why and how Void would be so open to talk to him from here on out. On June 15th, Duck Adam hosts a video titled "Yes, the creator of Dandy's World is lying to you," officially signing the start of this whole situation to the public. Here is where we have the call where Rox, Quell, Void, Xtriel, and Shinzu, on August 24th, 2024, are shown an image of a minor and an adult together. Quell says it's disgusting and Rox justifies it by saying that he was forced to draw it and swore to not draw anything like it again. I want you to remember the members of this call. We also have screenshots from the aftermath of this call, where Quell is shown yet another image of 2 characters kissing, and then another image that was actually CP. Rox once again justifies himself by saying that the person who forced him to draw these things had never stated the ages of the characters. By now, both Quelver and Void, who both were present in the call, had believed Rox's lies, with only Quelver starting to dwindle and not being sure who to trust anymore since Rox had been her friend for years. Again, these are perfectly human reactions considering no one would ever want to believe that someone you thought you could know and trust would actually be capable of doing that. On June 16th, Joji gets the notice of breach and request for compliance with NDA from Blushcrunch. However, Joji will only tweet about this only after 1 month. On June 17th, Rox contacts Void again, providing screenshots showing that he provided Quell with the Flavor Frenzy files. In these conversations, we can see that Quell has barely sent messages, with Rox doing most of the talking. These screenshots, however, only prove that Quell was just not fully honest about Rox not being willing to hand over the files, but they don't prove much else. Soon after, Rox makes his own thread on Twitter with his own side of the story, claiming that he was used like an old rag. Moreover, he goes on and claims that he's putting all this out not to be seen as the good guy, but rather to help the victims. What ticks me off about this is the fact that we're talking about the same person who lied about CP art he made, groomed the victims he's allegedly trying to help, and did, in fact, make everyone forget about the shit he did. A few days after this, Joji publishes the doc where all the allegations came from, and that got edited over time to add more and more allegations and experiences. Part of these things ended up being disproven by the fact that other coworkers have now been interviewed, stating that Blushcrunch has a healthy workspace and that no one is getting underpaid since they're getting paid the standard. Moreover, they tell us that had they been underpaid, mistreated, or not paid at all, it not only wouldn't be Quell's fault since she doesn't handle payments, but it would also not be legal since they have to abide by the US laws. To this document, Rox also adds his own part. I find it disgusting that he has even been allowed to work with them, especially since he's arguably even worse than Quell. Moreover, if you look at the way that part is written, it looks like a certain type of speech he used in order to make people to look at Quell negatively, and on top of that, to try and make people look at him as if he was a victim. Disgusting behavior on his part, and it's awful that Joji and Void allowed him to do this. Finally, on July 13th, Joji tells us that he got a cease and desist, and also mentions that he got notice of breach and request for compliance with NDA the month prior. Void also received the cease and desist, which has led him to wipe his entire account, along asking to have his testimony removed. After this, Quell ends up releasing her statement on the situation, confirming that she and Rox were extremely close and explaining her side of the situation. After this, we see Joey making his own statement, the co-workers speaking up, and then Joji stepping down. I frankly find everything about this situation icky, and Quell's statement from earlier today, August 6th, just makes it even worse. Quell has released another statement, one where she apologizes sincerely despite admitting that an apology like that won't do much. She has officially stepped back from Dandy's World for the time being in order to focus on her own health and growth, while assuring us that the game will keep going. She states once again that there's false informations going around, and also confirms that the legal team was the one handling Joji and Void on their own, but she has asked them to stop. She says that she comprehends how she made people feel, but she also admits to us that she has been unable to come to terms with the fact that she was groomed and manipulated, and saying that she saw the way people spoke about this, saying that she saw the threats and the harassment and the claims that she did this on purpose. She's stepping back as to not allow the harassment of her coworkers, and other players continue. I'm beyond heartbroken for this, but not because Quelver is stepping down, but because the screenshots and the docs we had, along how she spoke about her friendship with Rox, had shown us the hypocrisy. the manipulation, and that Quell was a victim too, but we collectively decided to ignore it. Void's own 2024 document has told us with simple math that when him and her became friends, Quell would have been around 16, whereas Void would have been around 22. In that same document, we also see that Quell was the one that introduced Void to Rox, hinting at the fact that Quell had been friends with Rox for longer, something she confirmed, and that Rox was taking advantage of her. Or that Void has been condemning Quell for believing Rox, while he also did so as shown by the call he provided to Duck Atom, or even that Joji and Void had been working with Rox during this situation. Or that we were supposed to just trust Duck Atom, someone that was Rox's friend. Now, more than ever, is evident that this situation was created with the intention to hurt Quell, and I can't help but feel that way when the people who claim to be against harassment were reposting tweets openly harassing and insulting players. When they allowed Rox to work for them, when no one batted their eyes to this. And when everyone has been spreading hate to children and simple employees. We saw what, in hindsight, was a clear attempt to bring down someone, and we let it slide. We let it slide because we were fully convinced that it was true, because anyone who even tried to say otherwise was called a bot, was told that it was in bad faith. I am among these people because I hardly ever had the courage to speak up about my concerns about this situation. Don't be ashamed if you were scared to speak up. Don't be ashamed if you were defending Joji and Void. Don't be ashamed of anything. If you weren't mean about it, if you never harassed anyone, never be ashamed of believing something. Bye.